Back in 2018, College Board released a full AP US Government and Politics practice exam to the public. Questions were pretty standard, asking about checks and balances, budgets, the Electoral College, standard questions you would get on an introductory political science exam, until you get to question 18. Which provides you with a map of a congressional district in Chicago. Believe it or not, this was actually a real district in the Chicago metro area. Now, you look at this congressional district and you know immediately what it is. This is clearly gerrymandered. Look at the way it curves and bends, the thin line that stretches out and back around. From that, you can deduce which one of the answers would be right. Gerrymandering doesn't tend to group together moderate voters, so A's not it, and it certainly isn't drawn to ensure a fair election, so B can be eliminated too. And gerrymandering doesn't cause elections to be competitive. In fact, it typically makes elections less competitive. So C can be eliminated, which leaves D as the correct answer. Fortunately, according to College Board, you got the question correct. D was the correct answer. Unfortunately, your answer D was also wrong. This is not a gerrymandered district. In fact, I would even argue that this is fair and representative. So firstly, we need to understand what gerrymandering actually is. According to Britannica, gerrymandering in US politics is the practice of drawing the boundaries of electoral districts in a way that gives one political party an unfair advantage over its rivals. This is political or partisan gerrymandering. Or that dilutes the voting power of members of ethnic or linguistic minority groups, and that is racial gerrymandering. This is typically characterized by strange lines that don't seem to have any respect for communities. Take a look at this map of North Carolina from the 2010s. Each one of these districts elects one representative, and North Carolina is a relatively purple state. Both Democrats and Republicans have managed to win statewide, so you would expect that North Carolina would send a mostly equal delegation of both Democrats and Republicans. Nope. Once election day came, North Carolina elected Republicans in 10 of the congressional districts and Democrats in only 3. North Carolina had been successfully gerrymandered. Notice how those weird lines bend, reaching from city to city and breaking up communities with no respect to geographical reasoning. The lines have been drawn this way to unfairly benefit Republicans, and quickly became a peak example of what gerrymandering is. Eventually, this map got struck down by the North Carolina Supreme Court, and new, fairer maps got put into place. So let's go back to our map from earlier. This district has every single sign of being gerrymandered, with curvy lines in a similar way that the map from North Carolina had. In fact, it became a commonly used example of what gerrymandering looks like. But here's the problem. This district is in the Chicago metro area, which means it almost always votes for Democrats. So no matter how you drew this district, it was going to elect a Democrat anyways. So why was it drawn in such a bizarre way? Well, to encourage minority representation. These two lumps here represent Hispanic communities that are connected by this line. Drawing the district like this ensures that Hispanic people have a voice in Congress. By connecting them, their voices and interests won't be drowned out by neighboring white or black communities. Ensuring minority representation through the drawing of districts is important, and something that is actually required by the Voting Rights Act. This district has a really strong chance of sending a Hispanic person to Congress, who will be better able to represent the people of their district. So this proves the idea that the general populace, like you and me, tends to oversimplify the concept of gerrymandering, and showing that just because a district has abnormal lines doesn't mean that it's gerrymandered. It's not just the general populace too, it's the College Board for the AP US government exam. And I think there's a good chance that the media helps with this oversimplification. In a Washington Post article written 8 years ago, titled, "This is the best explanation of gerrymandering you will ever see," the author uses this graph as the titular best explanation. Now, I will give credit to them for noting that just because districts are compact does not mean that the districts are fair. But the graph is simply not the best explanation of gerrymandering, unlike what the title had said. This image is considered to be the perfect representation. 3 districts for the blue team and 2 districts for the red team. This is representative of the general voter base. There's a few issues with this concept. First of all, it completely ignores the fact that swing voters exist. Most people don't cleanly identify with a political party, so trying to group people as just Team Blue or just Team Red doesn't work. But let's say in this perfect world, there are people that are just Team Blue or just Team Red. Let's say that the president is a member of Team Blue, and because of the president's policies, the economy has completely tanked. Even worse, the president has been caught taking hypothetical bribes from, say, I don't know, Big Petco to lower taxes on pet toys. This has caused a huge scandal and the president's approval rating to drop significantly. Because of this, 2/5 of the blue team switched their allegiance to Team Red. Now, a total of 66% of the population votes for Team Red. Let's run this election. The blue team still wins 3 seats, and the red team still wins 2. Despite the fact that the red team won nearly twice as many votes, the legislature still stays in favor of the blue team. And this is the way to draw the districts that would be perfect representation, at least according to the Washington Post. The truth of the matter is that understanding gerrymandering is a lot more complicated than an easily digestible graph. The other thing that you need to understand is that there's no such thing as perfect representation. No matter what way you draw the districts, someone is going to be unhappy. And there's no definition of what fair representation is either. Dividing people is never going to be clean. Somehow, communities are going to be broken up and people will not feel like they belong in their district. For example, in Minnesota's 8th Congressional District, Duluth, an industrial urban Democratic stronghold, is lumped together with a bunch of Republican rurals. This district is solidly Republican, but the people of Duluth and its suburbs don't have the opportunity to be represented by a Democrat in Congress, as they would have preferred. The only way to make it work is to bring the district down to the East Metro, but that doesn't make sense. The Twin City metro area has very little in common with the Duluth area in terms of culture and economy. So there's no such thing as perfect representation. But that doesn't mean that gerrymandering isn't a serious problem. Plenty of states have gerrymandered districts designed to support a political party. But how can we tell if a map shows a gerrymandered district? There's a few different metrics that we can use to measure gerrymandering. Firstly, when we look at the map, we can compare the partisan breakdown of the median seat in comparison to the state as a whole. Now, that may sound a little confusing, so let's take a look at the state of Connecticut. Connecticut has 5 seats in the House of Representatives, meaning they have 5 districts to draw. 2 of those are safe Democratic, and 2 of those are extremely competitive. The 5th is in the middle of the 2, not quite safe, but not quite competitive either. It has a partisan breakdown of D plus 12. Meaning that if at the nationwide level, the election results are split straight down evenly between Democrats and Republicans, the district would vote for the Democrat by a margin of about 12%. This is the median seat of Connecticut. And Connecticut, a D plus 12 state, does pretty well in this test. The median seat and the partisan breakdown of the state as a whole are very similar to each other. Both are, as previously said, D plus 12. Another way is to look at how many competitive seats the state has. Connecticut has 2 seats that are considered to be competitive, meaning that the people of Connecticut are able to hold the Democratic Party accountable since 40% of the seats there could be contested in a competitive election. The last metric is to look at the efficiency gap, trying to see how many votes are wasted. In this metric, Connecticut doesn't do quite so well. With a large portion of Connecticut being Republicans, they aren't favored in a single seat, meaning that many of those Republican votes are wasted. In fact, as of right now, Connecticut has elected an all-Democratic delegation to Congress. I guess the point overall is that things aren't as simple as they seem like 90% of the time in politics. This map that looks clearly gerrymandered is actually good representation. This graph, supposedly the best explanation of gerrymandering, is grossly oversimplified and doesn't give a good image of how Washington works. Also, maybe the lesson is that Washington Post doesn't do good political analysis.